I also condemn, in the strongest possible terms, the attack earlier today on the various embassy premises and personnel in Kinshasa, DRC, including the Kenyan embassy, by marauding protesters. This is a serious breach of international law as enshrined in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961. We call on the authorities in DRC to expeditiously investigate these violations and take appropriate actions. I say so, Mr. Chairman, because it is evident in certain areas that as they were looting, there were security agencies just standing by, seeming to abate the process of destruction. The principle of inviolability of diplomatic and consular premises is sacrosanct and must be respected in all cases under international law, including during armed conflict. States have an obligation to take appropriate steps to protect diplomatic and consular premises against any intrusion or damage, and to prevent any disturbance of peace of diplomatic and consular posts or impairment of their dignity. Indeed, I have conveyed my concerns to Madame Wagner, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of DRC, on this matter. The intense and ongoing armed violence, particularly in the areas surrounding Goma, continues to fuel instability and pose grave challenges to the peace and security, not only of the country, but for the wider region. The recent killing of 13 peacekeepers is a stark indication of the escalating violence and the growing risks faced by those working to restore peace and stability in the region. These brave soldiers paid the ultimate price in the service of peace and their loss is deeply felt. I extend my deepest sympathies to the families of the fallen soldiers, as well as to the governments of South Africa, Malawi, and Uruguay. I wish to conclude by reaffirming Kenya's commitment to working closely with all organs of the African Union and the broader international community to find a lasting solution to the ongoing conflict in Eastern DRC. We must work with urgency, resolve, and collaboration to ensure that peace is restored to Eastern DRC. The welfare of the Congolese people depends on our collective action, and it is our shared responsibility to ensure that this conflict is brought to an end for the benefit of all those affected. Moving forward, Kenya believes that there are 3 key steps that are necessary to address the ongoing conflict in Eastern DRC. First is enhanced coordination and collaboration among all stakeholders, including regional governments, the African Union, the United Nations, and other international partners to ensure our efforts are fully coordinated and mutually reinforcing. This will help to avoid fragmentation and duplication of efforts and ensure that all peace efforts are aligned towards a common objective of regional stability. Second is strengthening the ceasefire and peace commitments. It is imperative that all parties adhere to the ceasefire agreements under the Luanda peace process. The continued violation of ceasefires only prolongs the suffering of the civilian population and exacerbates the conflict. A firm commitment to peace must be made by all parties. Third is the sustainable financial support for peace and humanitarian efforts. I call upon our regional partner states and the international community to extend the much-needed humanitarian support to alleviate the suffering of the displaced civilians in the affected localities. We must ensure that aid reaches those who are most vulnerable and that the necessary resources are made available to meet the immediate and long-term needs of these displaced populations. The humanitarian situation in Eastern DRC has reached alarming levels. The latest wave of conflict has pushed the civilian population to a humanitarian brink with a new displacement of over 400,000 people in North and South Kivu provinces. The individuals are facing dire conditions with limited access to basic necessities such as food, water, shelter, and healthcare. The human suffering is immeasurable, and we must act with a sense of urgency to address their plight. In light of this crisis, His Excellency President William Ruto, in his capacity as the chairman of the East African Community, has convened an emergency extraordinary summit tomorrow, Wednesday, 29th January 2025. It is our hope that the summit will serve as a platform for meaningful dialogue and coordinated action among the region's leaders, enabling us to find practical and sustainable solutions to the escalating conflict in Eastern DRC. We reiterate the outcomes of the UN Security Council, which called for the need for resolution of the crisis through a political solution. In this regard, the Luanda process and the Nairobi process remain critical to ensure restoration of peace and security in the DRC. However, the success of the ongoing peace efforts depends on the warring parties in Eastern DRC honoring their commitments to peace, including implementing the ceasefire agreement that was reached under the Luanda peace process.